The studio lights burned hotter than usual as Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair, fingers tapping against her cue cards with barely concealed impatience. The conversation had begun harmlessly enough, framed as a discussion about storytelling, culture, and the responsibility of actors when portraying deeply meaningful figures. Jonathan Roumie sat across from her, posture relaxed but attentive, hands folded loosely as he listened. His expression was calm, almost serene, the kind of quiet focus that suggested he had anticipated resistance long before stepping onto the set. Joy smiled as she spoke, but it was the kind of smile seasoned viewers recognized instantly, the one that came right before a cutting remark. She questioned the influence of faith-based performances, her tone drifting from curious to dismissive. A few chuckles rippled through the audience at first, encouraged by her familiar sarcasm. Roumie answered politely, choosing his words with care, explaining how art, belief, and humanity often overlap in ways that challenge people rather than comfort them. As the exchange continued, Joy interrupted more frequently, reframing his responses with a sharp edge. What had been a dialogue began to feel like a test. The co-hosts shifted in their seats, sensing the temperature rise. One of them attempted to soften the moment with a joke, but it fell flat, swallowed by the growing tension. Roumie's eyes flicked briefly toward the audience, then back to Joy, as if grounding himself before continuing. He spoke about respect for differing beliefs, for audiences who found meaning in stories that didn't always align with mainstream perspectives. His voice remained steady, but the weight behind his words was unmistakable. Joy leaned back, crossed her arms, and let out a short laugh that echoed louder than intended. The audience reaction was mixed this time, scattered applause clashing with uneasy silence. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Joy made an offhand remark that sounded less like critique and more like ridicule, implying that faith-driven performances were manipulative by nature. A collective gasp swept through the studio. Roumie paused, the silence stretching just long enough to feel uncomfortable. When he spoke again, his tone was still calm, but firmer now, edged with disappointment rather than anger. He pointed out that dismissing belief so casually, especially on a platform that claimed to celebrate diversity of thought, revealed a double standard. His words weren't accusatory, but they landed with precision. The audience responded audibly this time, a wave of murmurs and applause breaking through the studio's controlled atmosphere. Joy's smile froze. For a brief second, she seemed genuinely caught off guard. She tried to reclaim the moment with humor, tossing out a quip meant to reassert control, but it didn't land. The laughter was thin, hesitant. Her co-hosts exchanged glances, unsure whether to jump in or stay silent. A producer's voice crackled faintly through an earpiece somewhere off camera, urging a pivot, a wrap-up, anything to diffuse the tension. Joy leaned forward again, but the energy had changed. The confidence that usually carried her through confrontations now felt strained. She challenged Roumie more directly, her words sharper, faster, as if speed alone could regain dominance. Roumie didn't raise his voice. He didn't interrupt, he simply waited, then responded with measured clarity, emphasizing that disagreement didn't require humiliation. Joy blinked, the words still echoing in her ears as if it had been spoken directly into her thoughts. For a split second, the familiar armor of wit and sarcasm failed her. The audience noise faded into a low hum, replaced by the awareness that something had gone wrong, irreversibly so. She straightened in her chair, lips pressed thin, and glanced briefly toward the camera as if checking whether this moment could still be edited into something harmless. Jonathan Roumie remained still, his expression neither triumphant nor smug. If anything, he looked burdened by the turn the conversation had taken. He clarified that his intention wasn't to accuse but to remind everyone watching that conversations about belief didn't have to devolve into dismissal. His voice softened, but the point had already landed. The applause that followed was louder, more confident, no longer hesitant. Joy tried once more to pivot, launching into a broader commentary about comedy, free speech, and the right to question institutions. Normally, this would have been her home turf. But the rhythm was off. Each sentence felt rushed, as though she were chasing control that had slipped through her fingers. One of the co-hosts gently interjected, attempting to reframe the discussion, but Joy waved it off, pressing forward. That was when the audience reaction shifted again, not applause this time, but an uneasy rustle. Joy's words, sharpened by frustration, carried an edge that even longtime fans found uncomfortable. Roumie inhaled slowly, then spoke with quiet resolve, saying that questioning belief was valid, but mocking it on a public stage came at a cost. He added that respect wasn't about agreement, it was about restraint. The studio fell into a silence so complete it felt staged. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked down at her notes, then back up, her eyes flashing with something between anger and disbelief. The moment stretched, cameras lingering just a beat too long. Somewhere off stage, a producer gestured urgently, signaling a cut to commercial. Instead, Joy reached up and unclipped her microphone. Gasps rippled through the audience as the small metallic sound echoed louder than expected. Her co-hosts froze, unsure whether this was a joke or a genuine walkout. Joy stood, pushing her chair back with a sharp scrape against the floor. For the first time that morning, she said nothing. No quip, no sign-off. She simply turned and walked off the set, heels clicking with deliberate finality. The cameras cut to a wide shot, catching the stunned expressions around the table. One co-host attempted to fill the silence, offering a strained smile and a quick transition to commercial, but the damage was done. In living rooms across the country, viewers sat forward, phones already in hand, replaying the moment in real time. When the show returned, Joy's seat remained empty. A brief statement was read, vague, carefully worded, citing a need to cool down. Jonathan Roumie stayed on the panel, visibly shaken but composed, answering a final question with grace before thanking the hosts and audience. As he left the set, some audience members stood, applauding softly, respectfully. Outside the studio, the story exploded. Clips circulated within minutes, hashtags multiplying, opinions hardening on both sides. Some defended Joy fiercely, praising her for refusing to be silenced. Others criticized the exchange, calling it a rare moment where her usual dominance had crossed into something harsher, and backfired. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled. Meetings were called, statements drafted and redrafted. Joy, meanwhile, remained out of sight, her abrupt exit fueling speculation. Was it a temporary walkout? A line crossed too far to ignore? No one seemed to know, and the uncertainty only deepened the impact of what viewers had witnessed. By nightfall, the argument had become more than a viral clip. It was a cultural flashpoint, dissected by pundits and fans alike. Yet at the center of it all was a single, unscripted moment, a conversation that spiraled, a challenge that landed, and a veteran host confronted with a silence she couldn't out-talk. Whether Joy would return or not remained unanswered, but one truth lingered unmistakably in the aftermath. That morning, the view had been changed by a confrontation no one would soon forget.